Well, first of all, I forgot to set up this. So this is related to, well, getting money. I will explain this a little bit better later. But basically, we have. So this means, what this means is that this trade route doesn't start here. So the white, if you can see the white line, is a trade route, and it doesn't start here on the Spice Islands, and it starts instead in here. And the same for the black route. So the black route will start in here in Tana, so it means that there are other alternatives that are not available at the moment. So in here and also in here. So the trade route will basically start distributing money going through here, and whichever empires it goes through. For example, this black route can do this. So it will create more military power in all the countries it goes into, and also whichever concessions it finds, it will distribute money. And that's why Fugger decided to, well, go into Portugal, because we saw that there's a card here that allows us to activate the Spice Islands as the beginning of our trade route, and that will start distributing money to our concession that we have here. But also there's our opponent, which can tax us, will be able to tax us in that concession. And that will become interesting, actually. So what he will do now is well, first of all, he doesn't have any money. So he has to decide what to do about this. So I guess it's time to show how a trade route works. So as a first action, he will do trade fair. You see that we can do this on the east or the west. So we cannot do two trade fairs on the same site on our turn. So we cannot do a trade fair on the west and repeat the trade fair on the west. But we can switch, do one trade fair on the east and another on the west on the same turn. But he will do it on the west. Why? Well, first there's more money here on the west, and there are other reasons as well. So the first thing is, so this money belongs here to Jack. When we start a west trade route, we discard the card, like this. The money that we have here, we increase one florin. So now we have 3. So this is a 2-player game, we increase 1 florin. If it were a 3 or a 4-player game, we would increase 2 florin here. And now this money will start being distributed along the white. Remember the cards for the west trade route are white. So we'll follow the white trade route, which starts in here, in Trebizond. So first florin goes to the person who started the west trade route. So we start in here in the Byzantine. You see we still have 2 money from this trade route that is going to be distributed. And in each empire that the trade route goes through, that money will create, military power, or we can increase it, or we have to do it. So in here in the Byzantine, we have to respect what is written on the card. So we put a white knight in here, and we put a red knight or a reformist knight in here. In Ottoman Empire, we put a reformist rook in here. The Papal States are already full, so we cannot increase anything in there, and we still follow the white line. we go into Aragon and we put here Islamic rook, and we go into Portugal where we can put where we have to put an Islamic rook into Granada. And finally, when we continue to follow the white line, we go into the concession. So Fugger gets one more florin from the concession. We continue into England, where one more knight is purchased, or well, more military power is purchased. We go into France, where we have also one more Catholic knight, and finally we reach the other concession that Fugger owns, so he gets one more money, and then the trade route is out of money, so it finishes there, and the Holy Roman Empire doesn't get to increase its military power. There will be pirates in the game, and they will absorb the money while it goes through it. So if there were a pirate here, for example, we'd go here and then we'd have to take one money, put it back in the bank, which is called China in the game. so there will be one less money, or one less florin to distribute during the trade route. And this was actually very good. It's not often that you will be able to do a trade route and get all the money from that route. This went very well because the blue is on this border that was not crossed by the white trade route. So that was very good. So now he got some money which he can use to do what he wanted to do. So he can now take the money and buy this card and put it on his hand, because it's his second action on this turn. And now it's the other player's turn. So the other player, Jack, he will first of all he will play this card. Another thing I didn't mention is abilities. Yeah, so some of them have permanent abilities. In this case, you can sell this card for 4 florins instead of 2, so that's quite good. And this is well, it is related to the theme. You'll see that we have the conquistadors, which are related mostly to the Spanish history than the Portuguese history. As I said, Portugal and Castile, they are both represented by the Portuguese Empire in this game. Yeah, that's okay. I'm Portuguese and I'm okay with that. I approve it. Because I know Phil, I read his explanation of why he did that. It's not like he doesn't know the history. So, and this is another card with different ops that this player can use. So, has his 2 actions. He will just play these 2 cards on the west part. So we see we have here the west and the east part of his tableau, and then his turn is over. And now it's the turn of Fugger. He has 2 florins yet, and he will very much like to play this card. So you see that when we did the west trade route, we started here and we went all the way there, and actually Fugger got all the money, but he was lucky because there were no more concessions here, because later in the game, if he tries to do that before the money gets into his concessions, there will be no more money left. So he will want to trade switch the trade route so that it starts in here instead. And that's what he will do. So he will first, he'll play this card onto his tableau, and he will activate the one shot. So to activate the one shot, that means that he also has to play whatever is here, but he's always interested in that, because this puts a concession of his on the map, and having concessions, having a lot of concessions, more than your opponents, is also one of the victory conditions. So he plays that, he does the trade shift, so that means that we take this and we put it here, so that means that now this is the the beginning of the west trade route. And unlike on the black trade route, this one cannot be undone, because this represents that Portugal has found out its way around the south of Africa into into India and other countries where the trade routes where they can do trade without having to cross the Mediterranean. So once that was discovered, everything trade was changed for forever. So there's no going back on that on that. So I forgot to refresh the market here. So after the west trade route, so now we take the card and we flip it. It will become this card. So you will never be able to do what's on this card. And now we scoop these ones in. Oh, a queen. That's interesting. And then I put one more card here. So Fugger has just done one action, which was to play the card, and the one shot is included in the action of playing the card. So he can still do another action. So what would he want to do? He's mostly focused on the west part of the world. We haven't really seen much more than that, and you have here different options. He only has 2 money. So maybe you will just buy this card for now. And then we move on into Jack. So Jack will do one of the other actions available during the game. So purchase we've seen, play is to put a card into the tableau. We've seen how it works. Sell for 2 florins is straightforward. It's just selling one of your cards for 2 florins. And then we have the tableau ops. So the trade fair is, we've done a west, it was Fugger who did a west trade fair, and victory is, so you have to spend an action into claiming victory. So in order to win the game, you have to fulfill a victory condition, and that victory condition must be active in play. So if someone, you or other, played a command card and activated that victory condition, and on top of that you still have to spend 1 action to win the game. So that gives your opponent some options to try to stop you. But he will do tableau ops, east or west. So like the trade fair, you can do 1 tableau ops on east and another one on the west on the same turn, but you cannot do 2 tableau ops on the same side of your tableau. So he will do tableau ops on the west side of his tableau. So that means that for all cards that he has on the west side of his tableau, he gets to perform one operation for each card. So in here we have three different operations. We have an Inquisitor. An Inquisitor allows you to move a bishop, which you've not seen come into play yet, so it doesn't really matter for now. You can get votes on the west, which can be interesting, but maybe he doesn't have the conditions to do that. And he can do a siege action, so to destroy or kill one of these. To perform a vote, creates what is called a regime change. So a regime change will make the corresponding corresponding empire to go into your tableau if it's not there already. So if it's on another person's tableau, so if he managed to do a regime change into Portugal, Portugal would go into his tableau. But if it were Fugger doing the regime change in Portugal, then Portugal would turn, well, first of all the queen would suffer, she would die, well, it happens to queens, and then Portugal would turn into a republic, which would be called the Republic of Portugal, but we have the Corte Generale of Castile. Well, anyway, hasn't happened yet. Well, didn't happen in reality, although we did have three kings in common a little bit later. But in order to do this vote, he needs to have more concessions on that country, or on his chosen country. It can be any country on the west, you can see here, but he has to have more concessions on that, and he has no concession on any country on the west. The concessions he have is between Mamluk and Ottoman, which are both on the east, so he can't use this vote for anything useful. So the only thing he could do is siege, so that means he can kill either a knight or a rook on the Papal States. So we have the Papal States here. Is it interesting for him to do that? Probably not. There's not much to be gained with that. Some Papal States are already very fragile as they are, and he has no immediate way to gain control of the Papal States, even after killing one of these. Yeah, but what the hell? I'll just do it. It's straightforward. We just take the piece and put it back on the box. Now, if it were an empire which is already in play, that knight, instead of being killed, it would become repressed. So, and repressed people on an empire, they will come back and try to overthrow. That can become quite important in the game as well. So he's done the first action on his game. I do this just to signal that I've done the action one up on this card, and this is what he really wants. He wants to tax. He wants tax in Portugal. So, oh yeah, how lucky for him. So to tax, first of all, to tax into a country, the country cannot be saturated. So by saturated, it means that, so Aragon is saturated in this case because all the cities are full. But Portugal, well, he got lucky because Fugger opened this slot, so he can tax this. So what he can do is he chooses one of the borders of the country, which he chooses this one, and then the owner of the concession on that border has to either pay 1 florin to China or the bank, however you call it, or he has to instead, well, repress that concession. So repress would mean to, well, just like the example of the night, put this, well, as an unhappy person in here. But I think Fugger, although he only has 1 florin, he will decide to pay that florin, and he will be in trouble. Maybe he decides just repress it, because he will suffer a lot with this op being triggered all the time, and he has to pay 1 florin all the time. So if I'm not mistaken, did Jacques do his second action or not? Well, I think not. So what he will do now is he will maybe do did I forget to clean this up again? Maybe I did. So what will Jack do now? Well, he can start the east trade route, which is quite simple. Yeah, maybe we'll do that to get some money. So we'll start an east trade route, which starts there. This is already saturated, so we don't build any levy. So let's start the east trade route. Take out the card. Here we have, take 1 more florin from the bank, from China. We put it here, and then we start the east trade route, giving 1 florin to the player who started the route, and then we continue. Ottoman, well, the Hungary Empire is already saturated, Ottoman is already saturated, and when we go here, it doesn't matter where, well, when the concession is here, it's on the whole border, so it doesn't really matter which part it is in. And then we go through this concession, and this one will get the final coin, and that's it. That's his second action. And now I'll make sure to remember that now I have to clean the market. So to clean the market, this is, we put this card in here, and the money comes here. All the cards slide with the money on them, if they have it. And here we have it. So this is a little bit the flow of the game, back and forth, trying to get more options, and try to, well, keep all options available once the combat cards come. Actually, it will depend a lot of what comes from the market, so you can plan a little bit in the long term, but you always have to keep your options open.